You're listening to Let's Stay Together, a podcast about Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
And today we're discussing chapters 19 and 20. We're going to do our summary discussion and then spoilery discussion. And there's no other announcements today. Everything's the same. We're just chilling, making episodes. So, chapter 19 begins at school. School started again. The gang has just entered their second year of high school. And Tohru says the first years are so cute. She says it would have been nice to see Kyo and Uo at the opening ceremony, to which they both reply, too much effort. Or in the Yen Press translation, pain in the ass, which I think is pretty accurate for like any school ceremony. Yeah. Uo says, even if it wasn't a pain in the ass, the pollen would drive her nuts. And Kyo says, just take a pill. And Uo says, don't work. Maybe I took too many different drugs when I was younger. And Kyo is like, what does that mean? Uo asks where the prince is. Tohru says that he's helping with the orientation committee or whatever. It's translated weirdly in the thing, but I substituted it with what I thought it meant, which was orientation committee for new students. Uo says that he's probably getting mobbed by first years, and we cut to the hallway where exactly that is happening. We cut back to the classroom where Hana says that she sensed that Shigure was here, and then we cut to the house the night before where Shigure says that he'll attend the ceremony. Not just to see high school girls, though.
Of course not.
No, he's an idiot, says Hana. Uo is like, wait, there are more Sohma guys here? Go get them, Kyo. And Hana is like, yes, fetch. And Kyo is like, why me? Hana leans over him and rests her hand on his shoulder and asks, why would we ask Tohru to do such a difficult task? Tohru says that she was planning to go and say hi anyway and tries to convince Kyo to come. But of course, he doesn't want to see them. But in bubbly, speech-shaped speech bubbles, as Tohru is wont to do, she tries to convince him again by saying that it might be different seeing them at school. It might be fun. But of course he responds with silence, and then accompanies her. As they take off, Uo comments that it's getting harder for him to say no to Tohru, and Hana replies, very interesting. Out in the hall, Kyo asks some girls if Momiji and Haru are in their class and to go get them, to which they reply yes, and go off to get them. In the background, the two girls swoon. And then while waiting for them, Kyo overhears some faceless guys talking about Tohru, who's kind of like standing across the hall, I think. Check it out, they say. She's cute, but she doesn't look very bright. It's annoying when girls get all assertive, though, don't you think? She looks like she'll buy anything. Kyo then comes over and punches the wall above her head, and she's surprised. Not sure if it's that smoldering look that follows is from Tohru's perspective, or if he looks back at the guys. But it works, and the guys eep and run off, which is nice. After that, Kyo says, don't just stand there like a doofus, which is a great line. And smacks her on the head and tells her to look sharp when she's by herself. If she spaces out like that, she'll get kidnapped or something. She's like, okay. And my favorite chibi panel of the series, we see Tohru trying to look sharp. There's a little thing that says looking sharp or something. Kyo is like, I said you need to look sharp when you're by yourself. You can act as dumb as you want when I'm with you. But actually in mine there's a type that says you can act as dumb as you want, which I almost typed in my notes, and I was like, oy. Anyway, she's like, okay, and relaxes, and he's like, hey, I didn't mean anything weird by that. And she looks kind of surprised and is like, weird how? He looks surprised too, and then blushes, and he's like, what am I saying? Am I crazy? Fortunately, Kyo and Tohru's awkward moment is once again broken up by Momiji appearing, who comes running up to them in a charming outfit that is half comprised of the girls' school uniform and with modified shorts on the bottom. And Kyo's face contorts into an enraged look that we haven't yet seen in the series, I think. And he slams Momiji down and exclaims, and now brace yourselves for this regrettable 2004 era line in the Tokyo Pop version that says, are you retarded? Or we can transport ourselves to 3 years ago, to a time when maybe we've evolved a little bit as a society, to the Yen Press translation, which says, what the hell are you doing? Or we could have just looked at the Japanese where he just says, bakaka, which is like, are you an idiot? So why? I don't understand why any of that extra stuff was necessary. Just be like, what the hell? Anyway. But he's very enraged about it, which is, I guess, something to note. Haru appears very casually behind him, and Kyo continues to berate Momiji and question Momiji's wardrobe choice. Tohru, Haru, and Momiji all think that it looks good on him, and Kyo still thinks it's wrong. Haru notices something behind them, and he kind of raises his arms out, and then there's a little sound effect that says scamper or whatever. So he scampers over to Yuki, who also asks what Momiji is wearing. He says that he came to stop and see them. He's not done with his like volunteer duties or, maybe his voluntold duties. I don't know. I can't tell. Because I think he's on the student council. Like he was the student rep for not on the student council. He's like a student rep for their class. So maybe he had to help, right? Like he was kind of facilitating the onigiri stand stuff. So he has some kind of, I don't know.
Duties.
Yeah, it seems like. Tohru asks.
Responsibilities.
He's what?
It's the old Rugrats movie. They told one of them that they had responsibilities, but they didn't understand, so they said responsibilities the whole time. And for some reason, like in my house, we still say responsibilities.
There's there's definitely phrases from Rugrats that we use in my house. Yeah. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're like jokingly saying we have some obligation, we're like, I got responsibilities.
I like I don't want to be a big people anymore.
Yeah.
There's definitely other ones I can't remember. What a great show. Let's do a podcast about Rugrats.
Yeah.
So Tohru asks what Haru and Momiji think of the school so far, and Momiji says that he was told to chill out at school, and so he says at school he's playing it cool. And just in case you were wondering if it was like a thing like the Faito Baito thing that was like translated, no, he says kuru. So it's like he says the same thing in Japanese too. It's kind of awesome. And Kyo's like playing it cool, dressed like that. I feel like when I read that line in my head, I was like, Kayla's going to ask. I better be prepared. So they hear a voice from afar, and we see fuzzy figures approaching dramatically. It's the student body president / leader of the school defense force and his lackeys. He sasses Kyo for his hair, and then he says Momiji's outfit is unacceptable. The most shameless thing he's ever seen, which I highly doubt. Haru's like who called him the idiot brigade, which is great. He also sasses Hatsuharu for his hair color, and Yuki protests and says that it's his natural hair color. But the president, Makoto, I don't remember if I said his name yet, Makoto says, he turns his attention back to Momiji and starts being an asshole again, saying, like, don't you have any manly pride? Right now you're traveling full speed down the road to failure, which is kind of an intense metaphor also. Momiji... Yeah,
intense speech bubbles, too. They're all, like, jagged.
Yeah, it's like big star-shaped speech bubbles, which is really funny.
Yeah, it's like action speech bubbles from, like, superhero comics.
Yeah, it is.
Bam,
like that.
Pow.
Bam, pow. Don't you have any manly pride? Anyway.
Yeah.
So Momiji starts getting upset, of course, and he protests that he says that, saying that it looks better on him. And Tohru says, please don't be so hard on him. Makoto says, I'm not being hard on him, merely taking the side of decency and common sense, which is all too intense. And finally, after 3 pages of this jerk's dialogue, Haru tells him to shut the hell up, which is awesome. Yuki and Kyo perk up kind of concerned, and Haru continues to tell the president off for judging people based on their appearance. He goes through like a whole thing that's like, well, if I look like this, does that mean I'm going to kill someone or whatever? I think that's the clincher out of all the things that he says. Of course, the gang realize that Haru has gone black. And as he continues, who the hell do you think you are? And grabs the president by the collar and like shakes him. And Kyo tries to step in. And is like, cut it out. You can't fight an amateur. And Haru's like, butt out, stupid cat, which of course pisses Kyo off. So Haru turns his attention to Kyo, and then they argue, and he just kind of like leaves the president on the floor, I think. It looks like the president looks like he's kind of like freaked out or passed out. I don't know. His glasses are all shiny, like you can't see his eyes. And one of the girl lackeys is like, President, snap out of it. Haru appeals to her, asking, what do you think of Momiji? He'll get bigger soon, and then it'll be more appropriate for him to wear the guy's uniform. Imagine how handsome he'll look then. And then on the next page, we see a preview of older Momiji holding a lollipop, which I imagine being accompanied by like a heavenly choir.
There are a lot of sparkles.
And the lackey girls, they're like crying and they're holding their hands up. Yeah, exactly. The president pops up and he's like, don't let him brainwash you, and sasses them more. And then Haru asks, well, what if Yuki wore the girl's uniform? And then we see a panel of Yuki kind of like in the same way, and the president reacting the same way, and Yuki's like, cut it out, basically. The president snaps out of it. I don't know why I kept calling him the president in my notes. I don't know. It's Makoto. It's his name. The president steps out of it, but he turns his attention to Haru, asking how he can prove that his hair color is natural. So, of course, Haru obliges by taking him to the bathroom. And after they come out of the bathroom, the president concedes and pieces out. So he's like, fine, whatever, you win this round, and leaves. Tohru asks, what did you do in the bathroom to prove your natural hair color? And Haru saunters up to her and caresses her cheek. and asks, "Do you really want to know? Why don't we just cut to the chase and do it?" To which Tohru replies, "Huh?" But of course, Kyo and Yuki step in and like pound Haru straight into the ground.
Also, I love the panel after she asks what they did in the bathroom. It's got like Yuki and Kyo looking mortified with their like hair all spiky.
Oh wait, I need to look now. Oh yeah, the little one at the bottom. Yeah. Kyo and Yuki's are all spiky, and Momiji and Tohru are like, I wish I could figure out a way to describe that face where they have like beady little eyes. Anyway,
it's a good beat panel.
It's pretty great. Yes, it's like a good. I'm surprised it's not like the ghost figures that we talked about before. Actually, because they're probably also.
Those are in the next page when Haru snaps out of it.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So, of course, a second later, Haru slowly sits up and he's like, "I'm kind of tired." And Yuki and Kyo are like, "You're tired," which is kind of it's hilarious. The bell rings, and so they have to head back to class. But Momiji asks Yuki and Kyo to stay behind because he has something to talk to them about, so Tohru heads back first. And Kyo is like, "What do you want? If it's stupid, I'll punch you," which is also awesome. So before you say anything, I want you to know that if it's stupid, I will punch you. We cut away to Tohru.
Wish I could start most of my conversations with that.
That would,
just save a lot of time,
It would be a good way to... It would certainly be a good way to, like, rule out conversation that is not required. Like, are you sure you want to
say that to people at work? Not my coworkers, people come into work.
No, there's a lot of stupid people to come into your work. You might get tired of punching people, I feel like. We cut away to Tohru, who's walking in like this partially outdoor hallway or something. Like it looks like it's kind of uncovered. It's hard to tell. It's not that important. She's walking in the hallway.
Cherry blossoms blowing in the breeze. So.
Probably. It's springtime, right? So
yeah.
Yes, that's right. There's petals in the background. She's thinking that was quite the commotion, but kind of like pleased about it, I think. Like it was fun. Days like this might wear Yuki and Kyo out. And a voice from the bottom left-hand corner of the page announces, "You look like you're enjoying yourself." And Tohru looks up surprised. We cut back to the Sohma boys, seeing their reactions to what Momiji said. Haru is a bit shocked and concerned. Kyo looks sort of neutral, but then he looks over his shoulder out of the corner of his eye, back at Yuki, who looks afraid. Very afraid.
His eyes are enormous.
They are enormous. They get even bigger later, though, so I reserved terrified for next chapter. I almost wrote that, but changed it. Then we see the dialogue. He says he's coming here, and we see floral imagery, kind of like petals blowing in the background. We cut back to Tohru, who sees a dark-headed figure, and a page flip reveals that the stranger that she has run into is Akito. Dun, dun, dun. It's almost like we rehearsed this, except we don't. We definitely don't. Oh, man. So chapter 20 opens with... Can you imagine like having to read like a chapter like serial or like manga serialized like week by week or whatever? Like it's the worst. Like if that was the reveal and you're like, now I gotta wait for like, I don't know, who knows how long. It could be like months if it goes on hiatus or something, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so chapter 20 opens with some narration, which I think is Yuki's internal monologue because of later. Wait, what? I didn't say what it said. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't say it in my notes. I have to look it up.
I can read it if you want.
Oh, can you?
There was something I wanted, something I pictured while in that dark room.
Oh, thank you. So we also see dialogue that's overlaid, I think, from Haru, because he calls Shigure sensei and it says we didn't know either right before you got here. So this is like directly continued from the last chapter. Right before you got here, at orientation, sensei told us. Akito suddenly announced that he would be coming too. And then under the dialogue, we see Akito turn and approach Tohru with a stern look on his face. We cut briefly back to like the actual scene of the guys talking, saying to be on the lookout for him. Momiji says that they thought they'd better warn Yuki in case he didn't want to see Akito. And Yuki looks down and away, and he leaves without saying anything. Like he's clearly very shocked. Haru and Momiji kind of look after, and even Kyo looks a bit concerned. Like he looks back and he's a bit concerned too. At the end of the scene, Yuki walks through the school alone, passing by some kids laughing and having fun. His head down. He's like clearly completely removed from everything that's happening in this school.
Yeah, I think there's a nice effect where like there's dialogue bubbles, but they're like filled in
Mm-hmm.
Just like a little texture.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a real nice effect to show you're just like you're hearing people but not listening to anything.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like in the last episode, there was the part where, I don't know, like you can see the dialogue from Tohru and the teacher, but like there's nothing in it. I guess it's like the opposite of that, because it's like there's that in that case there's no, they can't hear the sound. In this case you can hear the sound, but he's like not comprehending it or he's not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Nice simple visual effect that works really well, I think.
Mm-hmm. We cut then back to Tohru and Akito, and Tohru remembers seeing Akito in the window when she went to the main house to visit Hattori. She introduces herself and her mind races as she thinks, is this the real Akito-san? Why is he at school? Is it okay for me to run into him like this? He's so young, and he's as handsome as Yuki. And then she also remembers this is the man who hurt Hattori's eye. So she's a bit cautious. My, Akito comments, leaning over her a bit, because I think Tohru is teeny tiny. What a lovely young woman you are. So kind and so cute, says Akito. And Tohru is like, no, not me. I don't remember exactly what she says, but she's like, I'm not. No. Akito is like, relax. And then Akito apologizes for not introducing himself properly before and reintroduces himself as the head of the Sohma household. And Tohru thinks that she didn't expect him to be so gentle. Akito says, I would like us to be friends, with a kind of sly look, and ask that Tohru take good care of Yuki and the others. On cue, Yuki arrives, looking quite nervous and then petrified as Akito starts talking to him. Akito says that he's missed Yuki, that it's been ages since they've seen each other. Yuki's even gotten taller, and Yuki kind of like demands or wants to know what Akito did to Tohru. But Akito says that he was just saying hello. We see Yuki's clenched fist as Akito comes closer, right in Yuki's face, touching Yuki's cheek. And Akito asks why Yuki skipped out on New Year's. It hurts him deeply when Yuki does things like that. Akito may have no choice but to teach Yuki another lesson, to put him in the special room for a day just to remind him who he really is. And then we see baby Yuki, or maybe some other child, but I'm about 99% sure that it's Yuki in a kimono, in the corner of a room. It looks like a really big room, the way that it's drawn. Hands covering his ears. It
makes Yuki look really tiny.
It does make him look very, very tiny. We see the feet of another person, perhaps another child in a kimono, and the face of that child grinning a super sadistic looking grin. And we also see imagery of like a cord that's knotted and a paintbrush spreading dark paint. The next page reveals a panicked looking Yuki, unable to speak, completely panicked. In this case, his eyes are as wide as they've ever been, I think. And he looks
almost
like he's
Tohru-sized.
Almost Tohru-sized. That's correct. And like he's like kind of sweating a little bit, I think it shows. Tohru looks determined and then takes a step and pushes into Akito with her arms outstretched. And she's after she kind of recoils and is like, I'm sorry, we have to get back to class. Akito apologizes and says that he needs to return to the others. And Akito closes by saying that he hopes Yuki enjoys school and would be pleased if he would come to see him again soon. Seeing Yuki's very, like, he's like petrified the whole time. It's really intense. Akito turns to leave and we see Kyo watching from a window or maybe like farther down the hallway. It's a little bit hard to tell because like the angle's really weird. Like it looked like it was a window, and then when Akito looks at him, it like looks like he's lower or something, so I couldn't really tell. But whatever. Akito looks at Kyo smirking, and then Kyo glares, and then Akito leaves. Meanwhile, Tohru freaks out a little. Before she says anything to Yuki, she's like she thinks that it was completely out of line, but even though Akito sounded gentle, his eyes weren't smiling at all. Like perhaps Akito hated her even before now. But the thing that she wants to understand most is why Akito would hate her. And so the next page, that dialogue is like over this page and the next page, but the next page we see Yuki's like looking at his hand and his hand is shaking, which is also really sad. And he confirms with Tohru that Akito didn't do anything strange, and Tohru says that he was really just saying hello. Yuki kind of crosses his arms like he's trying to like also kind of like he's uncomfortable, like he's trying to like, I don't know, soothe himself or whatever, protect himself a little bit. And Tohru looks concerned. And then in her bubbly voice bubble voice, she says that they get out of school early today, that they should do something fun together. And she thinks, I want the fear of Akito and Yuki-kun's heart to clear away. So she tries to kind of like break him out of that feeling. Later in the afternoon, This manga once again turns into a sports manga as the gang plays badminton. And Kyo complains. Yuki says he doesn't know the rules, and Hana says there are no rules. And as they all get ready to play, Uo starts by shit-talking Kyo, of course. We cut.
I also love when they're choosing teams that Kyo is like outside the circle sulking, but he's still playing the game to choose teams.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, that's how he does. We cut away from the game to Shigure and Hattori talking, possibly back at the main house again. It looks like they're in another traditional-looking house. Shigure is telling Hattori about what happened in the car when they left school. And we see, like, his memory. In his memory, Akito says that Tohru is ugly, not too bright, and Yuki is still afraid. And that proves that Yuki won't forget Akito, which is super nice. Shigure continues, if you lock someone up in a dark room for a long time and mentally torture them, it leaves indelible scars. And we see a flashback of Yuki saying, let me out of here. And he's grabbing at, it looks like Yuki's on the floor and he's grabbing at someone, like someone's clothes or something. Hattori, lighting a cigarette, replies, but Akito doesn't understand that if there's someone that can cause those scars, there's sure to be someone who can heal them. That fact gives me more than a little courage. And then I think Shigure says, and what he said about Tohru, she's adorable. And then Hattori, I think, is like, coming from you, that sounds criminal. It's hard to tell because their backs are to us, but I'm pretty sure the dialogue belongs to those people based on the content. So we cut back to the kids all playing badminton. And we see Yuki's kind of inner monologue overlaid scenes of them playing, which is really cute. And it's continued from the beginning of the chapter. And what it says is, there was something I wanted, something I envisioned. So it was like, whatever, when I was in that dark room, there was something that I wanted, right? There was something that I wanted, something that I envisioned. Loving parents, a happy home with everyone smiling at me. A home that no one would ever want to leave. A warm place, a warm person. And of course that part's overlaid with Tohru as she's hitting the birdie. You can see tears welling in Yuki's eyes as he thinks, it exists, I know it does. The sun sets and the gang is all tuckered out from their like hardcore badminton playing, which fortunately we didn't have to witness. Although I guess if it was anything like the ping pong playing from last time, it would have been amazing because that was like the best comedic relief that we had so far, I think, in this story. Kyo wants to know why the wave girl's the only one who's not dying, and Haru says to Tohru that he was worried about Yuki, but it looks like he's okay, and he thanks her. And Toru's in her monologue, she thinks, Mom, today I met the head of the Sohma family. He's a difficult person to describe. I wonder if he's in the Zodiac. To be honest, he scared me a little, but... And then we see Yuki's dialogue, like, kind of interjected. Yuki says that they should go home too, and on the next page, Tohru smiles and says yes, and her smile is very charming. She continues to think, when we're together, my fears suddenly fly to the other side of the stars. And at the end, we see the trio taking off, and Tohru asks what they want for dinner. Yuki suggests leeks and liver, and Kyo is like, hey! And that's the end of the chapter. There's a lot that happened in these two chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I cut it down, or like I summarized it a lot, like I condensed it a lot, but whew, we saw some dark things.
Yeah.
Fortunately, at the end,
intense things.
Yeah, got wrapped up a little bit in a nice badminton bow. So that was nice. Kyo, I updated my count of Kyo bopping Tohru on the head, which is now 3, just for the record. Shigure's house didn't get broken, and plenty of people fought, but nobody's fights were broken up by hugging, so can add anything to our other counters.
Slamming to the ground, I think.
I could add a slamming to the ground counter. I feel like there's a lot of that going on. Didn't that happen last time, or am I just remembering like the anime? I might just be remembering the anime episode we talked about. Momiji got slammed to the ground a lot, I think, in the Onsen chapter.
I think it happens to Momiji a lot.
Must be.
The early chapters, anyway.
Before he, is older and calmer, perhaps.
They start some lighter stuff. We got time progressing.
Time progressing. Oh, you mean?
New school year.
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen in manga.
They're all older now. They're a year older. That is nice how in this manga the school actually changes. Like they graduate. Like it goes through the whole.
I remember there's a chapter of Oron that starts with them saying it's whatever time of year. You know what that means. And they have like the twins say like time to move up a new grade, and they like gag them and tie them up because that would mean like losing half their characters.
Yeah, I guess a bunch
like,
of them
we're
are
just not going to
seniors.
talk about that in this series.
That's funny. Like shh, everyone shush. Yeah, it's cool. Like it's nice.
Yeah. Haru and Momiji are at the school, so we get
Yeah.
more regular characters.
Yeah, which is nice. We like them, right? So
Yeah, I'm a fan of both of those characters.
yeah.
And one thing I noticed is that Tohru is wearing the ribbon that Yuki gave her in the last chapters.
Oh really? Like the
Yeah,
squiggly the scalloped
the
ribbon.
little You can. At least
Yeah.
I'm 90% sure that's the ribbon she's wearing because it looks exactly the same.
For sure. Also, I mean, she's always worn straight ones before, so
Yeah,
that's nice.
got
It's
the
her like first
cute.
day outfit.
Mhm.
You know, did you ever pick out your like first day outfit for school?
Yeah, up until like I don't know, fourth grade or something, and then everyone stopped caring.
I was gonna say I'm thinking about like maybe trying to think back to high school. And I'm sure like my first day outfit was just like whatever black T-shirt I could find and whatever hoodie I could find, like and jeans. Anyway,
you're lucky I'm here on time.
Yeah,
actual
basically.
Clothes on.
Oh my
let
god.
alone choosing a nice outfit.
Especially because we had to be at high school at 7:25, which was terrible. Anyway, but yeah, I'm sure Toru was like, I'm gonna wear these. Like, my headcanon is that they're special, at least.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they are. Well, we can also talk about Momiji's clothes.
Oh yeah.
Of course. So, I also I guess I kind of commented about this in the when I was talking through this is the whatever summary before. It's interesting that Yuki is so involved in like school stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like being he's like a class rep and he's like volunteering. Like he's always doing stuff at school.
I think involved with the school stuff, which is good. I think he's stretching himself.
Yeah, I think he's doing it on purpose for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as he talks about like back with the Daihin men stuff, talking about trying to like go out of his comfort zone more.
Mm-hmm. It's also kind of like a neutral way that he can do that. Like he doesn't really have to be like friendly with people, but then it forces him to like be out of his comfort zone. Like it's kind of it's a nice like borderline, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Baby steps. And also like it's funny. It is funny when all the girls are like, my name is like whatever, class 1A, blood type, whatever, like Scorpio. Like it's really funny.
Like long walks on the beach.
Yeah, poor Yuki. But of course, you know, whatever. He deals with it. So let's talk about Momiji's clothes. So, and also I want to talk about what's the deal with Kyo? Like, he made fun of... So, of course, like, he was super... I mean, like I said, enraged, I think, when I talked about it. He makes that, like, crazy-eyed face when he sees Momiji.
I think it's more of a shocked face.
Maybe.
Rather than enraged.
I guess it is. Well, I mean, I feel like being enraged is his response to many things. So it's hard to tell.
Yeah. I do think his initial slamming Momiji down on the floor is because Momiji looks like he's about to jump and hug Tohru.
Oh, that's possible too.
That's always how I read that. Like he's like Tohru and coming running over.
And then he just slams over him, but he also sasses him at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like a preemptive like slamming. Just be like, Momiji, now you're here. You're gonna get slammed into the ground. Behave.
Like, what did I tell you I would do if it was stupid?
But yeah, he's all like, but like it's interesting. I just thought it was interesting how he like made fun of Yuki the whole time that he was wearing the dress during the culture fair, and then he's like, I feel like he kind of overreacts to Momiji's uniform too. Like he calls it disgusting and whatever, and it's like obviously not a big deal. Like nobody cares about it except for the other crazy president guy, who blows it even more out of proportion. And it's like, dude, it's fine. Just let him be comfortable. And I enjoy his little shorts that he's like clearly crafty.
I like his little hat. Is that part of the uniform?
I don't think it is.
It looks like it matches, but I've never seen anyone else in the school wearing the hat.
Well, I think maybe he added the shorts and the hat. He wanted to accessorize.
Yeah, I was assuming the shorts were from the boys' uniform, like the summer version
or
of it or whatever.
Maybe they're like their gym shorts.
The gym version of it or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe. That's funny. I don't know. Because they always wear pants, and they're also dark, so they don't match. Like, they're blue. They're not blue. But I think their shorts might be. I don't know. I can't remember what they were wearing in the running one. They were definitely wearing shorts, though.
Yeah. I think I just always assumed it was, like, in the bottom half of the boys' uniform, the top half of the girls' uniform.
Maybe. I always assumed that he made the shorts and the hat. Like a crafty person. Or someone he had them made, perhaps.
Yeah.
I also noticed...
I think there's another scene where he's got snacks in this chapter, too.
Does
Ever since we pointed out the first one, and he's, like, always got...
Good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's when when Kyo and Haru are yelling at each other, it has Momiji saying like, "Tohru, do you want a lollipop?" And it has
Oh
a little
yeah.
label that says she's already bored.
Yeah.
Oh, and Tohru's actually got a lollipop at that moment.
Oh really?
Oh no, he's holding it up to her. Never
He's holding
mind.
up to her. Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
She was just holding it in front of her face, like, I guess I have a lollipop now.
Just like torn between like being concerned about Haru and
Yeah.
Yuki. But yeah, that's right. He did offer a lollipop. But yeah, so the guy, the guy comes up and sasses him. I just thought Kyo was really sassy too. Like and he was really sassy about both. Like I wonder what it is. And the way he kind of described it was like, it had to do more with his like masculinity, like wanting him to be more masculine or something. And it's kind of interesting because like I don't really remember that being that strong of a trait with Kyo. And then he also made fun of, he was like, oh, Yuki's self-conscious about being girly or whatever.
Yeah. I think with Kyo, like I think you could read it that way, but I think you can also read it as like obviously with Yuki he's just lashing on to whatever he can make fun of.
Yeah.
And with Momiji, I think it's more this like Momiji gets on his nerves and he's like talking about playing it cool. And he's like, how are you playing it cool when you're wearing the girl's uniform?
Yeah, exactly.
Around the hallway.
Running in the hall, wearing a fancy hat. Like, stop drawing attention to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, you're right. It is just annoying for him. And I think but also maybe he's trying to like be like, dude, like, can you try to fit in a little? Like, maybe it's that too. Yeah. Kyo and Yuki are always trying to fly under the radar. That's like all that they want to do.
Yeah.
And everyone, they stand out everywhere they go. And like Momiji more so. And I think Momiji likes it and they don't. So
yeah,
it's always causing. Kyo is constantly trying to like get Momiji to stop being like that, I think.
Yeah. Learn to blend, dude.
I know, basically. On the upside, Kyo is looking a little bit more, he looks like more and more concerned for Yuki. Like, especially when in the scene, it caught my attention when Haru and Momiji were like, Akito is coming, and he looked like over his shoulder. Like, so I think it was to build up the reveal to Yuki's face, but Kyo looked back at him too. So I thought it was interesting. And then, of course, he kind of like, he gave Akito the like, I don't know. He gave Akito a good like glare when Akito was leaving too. So maybe that's out of personal reasons for not being on good terms with Akito, but
I think that one. Yeah, I have 3 lines in my notes that are just Akito and Yuki, Akito and Kyo, and Akito and Tohru, like discussing those 3 relationships. So I think
you can segue into that now.
I think there's probably like a personal thing between Akito and Kyo, but I did notice him like looking back at Yuki, like he anticipated that Yuki would have a negative reaction there. And looking slightly concerned at that point.
I think so. Like maybe he's letting himself feel a little bit more concerned. Or at least, being, I don't know, he didn't have to look back there. So, so yeah. He like kind of give him like side-eyed,
Yeah, like there's definitely sort of a like an awareness, like at the very least, it's like, oh, that's not a good thing for Yuki. I wonder how he's reacting to this kind of.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that.
Thing, even if he's not consciously thinking that.
For sure. But yeah, and then of course, we could talk about Akito and Tohru, who got sent into the lion's den on her own inadvertently. Their exchange is interesting.
Yeah.
Like, Akito didn't do anything weird to her. It was just very pleasant.
I'm impressed with I don't remember it as much the first time I read it, but the sheer menace that comes off of Akito, even though he doesn't do anything.
Oh yeah, it's very, very strong. I think like the fact that Akito doesn't do anything is what makes it kind of menacing. It's like he doesn't have to. And then like really it's not the scene with Tohru that makes that very clear. It's the scene with Yuki that makes that very clear, because it's like 1 second Akito's being all nice and cheerful to Tohru and saying that she's all very cute and asking them to just take care of them. It's like a very normal exchange. And then Yuki comes and he's like, I missed you, Yuki, at New Year's. And like you could tell the tone is like completely different. I feel like I might not have let that come across in the summary. But...
Yeah, like I think there's kind of a tension before that, but the part that like really switches for me is when Yuki says, "What did you do to Honda-san?" and like Akito's face just kind of shifts there.
Yeah, it's
and
completely
then, like I was just saying hello, and then they like if you're through being distrusting, it becomes very like there's just definitely a shift there.
And then it kind of gives this like. It feels kind of fake. Like, I don't think Tohru comments on it. I don't think she notices it. But it feels kind of forced, like, the whole interaction with her. He's like, you're so cute. You're so whatever. Like, I'm shy and I didn't get to introduce myself to you properly. Like, I wasn't creeping watching you from the shadows. I just didn't, introduce myself to you. please take care of Yuki specifically and the others, like whatever. You know, it's very interesting. And then the way Yuki reacts and the way that Akito's tone and facial expression completely shifts when Yuki is there is interesting. Even Tohru called it out and was like, how do you describe that? Like animosity? Like this face saying things that are completely normal. Well, not completely normal, but just with no expression.
So like even at the beginning, she's talking about how he seems so like nice and everything, and then like she's like, this is the person who hurt Hattori's eye.
She's immediately on guard.
Yeah.
There's something about the way that Akito acts that immediately even puts Tohru kind of, you know, on edge a little bit. And then when, of course, after she's like Akito is a hard person to describe, but, and like even, and I was kind of, she says like she was kind of afraid of Akito or something, or it's kind of scary. So even she says that too. But of course, it's after witnessing Akito. I don't know if she can hear what Akito is saying to Yuki. But I think that she can.
She says she can't. I think she says she can't. She says, like, yeah, she specifically says, I couldn't hear what they were talking about, but Yuki couldn't seem so frightened.
Yeah. For sure. And yeah, of course, we hear what they were talking about. Which is that, you know, Akito basically threatens. Akito is like, I missed you. Like, when you do these things, it hurts me. Like, typical kind of, like, abusive manipulative language, and then threatens to lock Yuki away in the room especially for him, to teach him a lesson. So there's the obvious threat there.
Yeah.
And of course Yuki is terrified. He's so scared that he's shaking after when Akito leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was also intense.
It's also interesting. I don't know if I can't remember if he said it in the summary, but he specifically asks like why he skipped out on New Year's. And like back in that chapter, everyone was talking about like Akito's not going to be happy about this.
Yeah.
So, kind of interesting that it came back in this way and after a few chapters.
It seems like they didn't go to New Year's. They didn't go visit him after New Year's after all. Like it seems like Yuki hasn't been there since New Year's.
Yeah.
Or since before New Year's, right? Which is funny because Tohru was like, Tohru said that Kyo and Yuki were going to go visit the main house, and Tohru was like, I seriously doubt it, when he thought. So of course that was true.
But yeah, it's like everyone in that chapter was like, Akito's not gonna be happy about this, and he was not.
No, Akito was definitely not happy about it. It was interesting to note. And then of course I think we talked about Akito's relationship with Kyo enough, I mean as much as we can see, but they definitely there's animosity there too.
I think that glare is one of the most intense ones we've seen from Kyo. That glare toward Akito, so like 100%. Like sheer hatred right there.
Yeah, and like almost like suspiciousness or something too. Like what is he doing? They're all really suspicious about what Akito is doing there. Yeah. Which is why they told Yuki, right? So
yeah, I think it's like even before you see their direct confrontation, you can tell it's a
big deal.
It's going to be a thing because they specifically warned Yuki.
And Yuki's really upset about it before even seeing Akito. Yeah. And immediately suspicious of what happened between Akito and Tohru. Maybe that's all we can say without spoiling stuff.
Yeah, very, very intense interaction there.
I also thought it was interesting to shift to a slightly less intense thing. I thought it was interesting how we saw Shigure and Hattori were contrasted again with like the kids outside. So in the chapter for Valentine's Day, the kids all went on a double date, and Hattori on their double date adventure, as I like to call it. And Hattori and Shigure, they had like a conversation where they talked about their past. In this case, they're having a conversation where they're talking about Akito, and they're like in the main house again while the kids are outside having fun. So it's just interesting to see that contrast again.
Coating their lungs with tar.
Yeah, well, specifically Hattori, the doctor. I was wondering if anybody... It didn't look like in any of the previews that anybody was smoking in the anime. So I was like, I don't think anybody has yet. I can't remember if Shigure did in that one episode, but I guess I'll save that for later.
I don't know. Yeah. We're just now getting into Hattori's introduction, so...
Oh, I'm so excited.
They're the biggest smokers, so...
They are. And it seems like they smoke mostly when they're together.
Yeah.
I mean, Hattori does by himself, but...
It's probably like when you hang out with people you knew when you were younger, and you kind of fall back into your old bad habits.
Maybe Shigure just like bums cigarettes off Hattori too.
Probably.
He probably does.
I'm almost sure he does, actually, now that you said it.
I mean, it seems like it. I can't remember what happened in that scene in the one where they were in the main house before, but I mean, maybe he just like Tori just handed him a cigarette. Like, I can't remember. Anyway, those are all the non-spoiler things that I had. Okay, well, then I guess we'll move on to spoilers. So that's all for now. So after the music, we'll talk about spoilers. You can find us at staytogetherpodcast.com. We are Stay Together Podcast on Tumblr, at Stay Together Pod on Twitter, and you can email us at staytogetherpodcast@gmail.com. I really should have picked a shorter name for this podcast, but whatever, everything's fine. And I just want to say thank you all for listening as always, and we'll see you next time if you don't listen to spoilers. Bye. I just like to scream goodbye. We're back to talk about spoilers.
Yeah, I'm going to start with all the lighthearted stuff again.
Okay. Is Miss Motoko's imagination a spoiler for Momiji getting hot later?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I have that written down as a grown-up Momiji because that's pretty close to what he winds up looking like. And he does wear the boy's uniform when
he grows into it.
Glows up.
It glows up, yeah. Momiji definitely glows up for sure, but still with a lollipop.
Yeah, and his little bunny backpack.
Mm-hmm.
I like that scene. It's cute.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're talking about like Yuki doing lots of stuff in the school,
mm-hmm.
and he eventually becomes the student body president or something. I can't remember exactly what his title is.
President.
Yeah, I know he replaces the freaky dude.
Yeah, which is probably a good choice because that guy was like way too anal.
Yeah. One thing funny though, I forgot that he called it the School Defense Force because I remember Kakeru calling it that.
Yeah.
Later on, I just thought that was a Kakeru thing. I forgot it was already established.
Yeah, I forgot that he called it that too. But I'm sure that Kakeru's version is completely different.
But he talks about how he's like, he wanted to join the School Defense Force, so I think he knew it was called, somebody called it that and was like, yeah.
That's how they recruited.
My jam.
That's how they recruited Kakeru. He's like, they're like, oh, you want to join the student defense or the school defense force? And he's like, do I?
Yeah.
And what color can I be? Yeah.
Like, you want to join the student council? He's like, I don't know about that. What about the school defense force? Yes.
Yes. Sign me up.
Another thing I took note of is like, you see some of like Haru's protectiveness, and like we've seen him kind of be protective of Yuki, but we also see him be protective of Momiji in this chapter, and that's kind of like a big trait of his later on that I didn't really notice that it was established pretty early because he's really protective of a lot of the characters. He's protective of Kisa and obviously protective of Rin.
And Momiji, as we see.
Yeah, because I noticed him like it's the guy like making Momiji upset that makes him go off this time.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's a good catch. Like I guess I know that he has that character trait, so I didn't really think about it. It didn't stand out, but it's the first time I think. Although he did, I mean, he cared about Yuki in the. But
that's kind of like they have a special relationship, so you could see that as being just kind of a one-off thing. But
yeah, that's true.
Becoming out more obvious that he's just kind of he's protective of the people he cares about in general.
He's very caring, and yes, of course, we'll see that with Rin. I was going through all the chapters making plans, and I was like, this is a Rin one, this is a Rin one. It was so many. I love, because I like Rin, but anyway.
And then I don't think I have anything else lighthearted, so Akito and Yuki's
yeah, how about that?
Backstory.
I was like, oh, I can't talk about any of these images and this imagery right now. I have a question for you about that. He didn't put Yuki in the cat's room?
No, I don't think so.
It's a different room, right? Okay. I'm pretty sure, but I didn't look it up. I'm pretty sure the only person he put in the cat's room was Rin, but...
Yeah. Because I think it's it's a room where they used to hang out.
Yeah.
Before it lost it more than usual.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reference to the paint and the thing, which of course I couldn't talk about. I just stated it.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong imagery on that page that comes in later on.
That little sketch of Akito's face is so sadistic looking. It was really creepy, or it stood out to me this time.
The paintbrush.
The paintbrush. That's the paintbrush, the paint, I don't know, scene or whatever. I can't remember exactly when that happens, but it's also very the same word that we use, impactful, maybe.
Yeah.
It makes a big impact.
Yeah. That's, speaking of Kakeru, I believe that comes up when he's talking to Kakeru.
It does. I'm also excited about that. He kind of basically at one point Yuki kind of confesses, or not confesses, but he divulges all this information about himself to Kakeru.
Yeah.
In that one part.
I think, yeah.
Which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for him to share his feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing was that flashback you see when Shigure and Hattori are talking.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from some later part? I can't remember. It's when it has Yuki, because he's older then.
Oh, it's when Yuki asked to go to Shigure's. I'm pretty sure it's Yuki asking Shigure to help
I thought
him.
it might have been, but I couldn't remember exactly.
I can't remember exactly what part of the series it's in, or like, but I'm pretty sure that's like, I don't know if it's directly the same panel, but I'm pretty sure there's like another one that's Yuki asking for Shigure to take him away, which is it's interesting that he's so old. Like that's like right before the series starts.
Yeah, like he was under Akito's thumb for a really long time.
A long time. Like I think like we always talk.
It's amazing he's as functional as he is.
Oh my god, it is. We always talk about how it's interesting that like Tohru. So like we know that Tohru's mom and Kyo were in the same place at that time of the accident. So Kyo's timeline and her timeline line up for when the series kind of starts. But I'm pretty sure Yuki moved into Shigure's house like when they started school, like when they started high school, or something. So it's also right before the series starts. I would have to look that up. We'll have to like watch out for that later. But he's definitely old. He was definitely in high school because he said he went to a boys' middle school. Like he chose to. He says, I think, like I don't know. It was part of his way of getting out of the Sohma house was to go to like a co-ed school and live with Shigure. So I think all those things could have happened right before the series started too.
Yeah,
that's my recollection at least. But yeah, it's a reference to that time, and it's Shigure that he's.
That's what I thought it might have been, but I wasn't 100% sure. Let me see if you remembered.
I remember very clearly. That specifically, but then nothing else about it. I mean,
yeah,
and I had to avoid. I was like, I can't. It's like it just says like "get me out of here," which is kind of intense. I think he's more just like, kind of like. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it is intense. It's kind of like asking him to help him get out of the.
I think house. I remember like Shigure's being Shigure about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Starts to leave, and then
he grabs
Yuki grabs him. Yeah, after. Yeah.
Yeah, Shigure. I remember Shigure being Shigure about that situation.
Yeah,
it's a good way to describe it. Yeah. And then he
eventually
kind of takes pity on him.
This scene with that flashback and Shigure's face right afterward, then again makes it one of those scenes where it seems like Shigure kind of feels guilty about something. But...
He's like, oh yeah, you can't like torture someone for a long time without them having scars. Remember that time that I almost made Yuki stay in the Sohma house forever? Oh, good times. And Hattori's like, well, someone else might be able to help him.
Yeah, someone much better than you.
Much nicer and better than you, yes. Oh, Shigure.
I really do like Shigure as a character, but he's awful.
He's terrible.
Yeah.
And Akito is too.
I really enjoy him as a character. He's one of the more interesting ones. But...
Yeah, he's a character that I love to be suspicious of, for sure.
Yeah.
And be like, that's not what you mean, you jerk.
Yeah. I revel in his awfulness.
For sure. I revel in Akito's awfulness until I start to feel sympathy for Akito. But then I also appreciate how like Rin is like, I'll never forgive Akito, essentially. Like I can't remember exactly, which is fine. That's also a perspective that's fine when someone has, almost killed you several times, essentially.
Yeah, I do like how obviously way to the end of the series. How several of the someones are like, I don't know about this. I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah, I mean it's a legitimate reaction. Like I think all of the thing about Takaya's work, I think that most resonates with people is that it like has all of these facets of genuine emotion, and there's some critique that doesn't cover everything, like there's no characters that are like homosexual or whatever, but it has this whole like really broad spectrum of many human emotions, different types of love, different types of different conflicted feelings about different things, like a variety of things. I think everybody's conflicted about something, which is nice.
And like none of the characters, even the like awful ones, are really like shamed for the emotions they feel.
No,
like they're allowed to be angry and spiteful and upset and all sorts of things without really being like, you shouldn't feel that way, even if they're like terrible people.
Well, they can't.
Even terrible people are allowed to have emotions.
They're allowed to have emotions. Like the trick to being not terrible is to learn how to control them, but that's how it goes. That's the coming of age part of this story for everyone. even the old characters or the older characters.
Especially the older characters.
The most emotionally... Shigeru meant... What he meant when he said he's the most cursed is that he's the most emotionally stunted of all. Yeah. I mean...
State of Arrested Development. Yeah, that's the name of the show. Sorry. Has anyone done any like incorrect quotes for Arrested Development for Fruits Basket? Because I think that would fit really well.
I don't know. I'm sure someone... You can submit them to the like incorrect Furuba queue on Tumblr if you want, which makes me laugh.
It's like, I love all of my Zodiac equally earlier that day. I don't care for Kyo.
Oh. It's true. I thought it was interesting how... So, like, I was looking at this. Akito says, oh, we weren't properly introduced to the main house before, but let's like, properly introduce ourselves. I'm Akito, and I'm head of the family or whatever, and I want to be friends. And I thought that I want to be friends, like, really threw me off, because that's what Tohru says to Akito, I think, at the end. And so I looked it up. The scene is very similar, where Tohru, like, when, right before the cliff collapses, it's not exactly the same, and I don't have the Japanese version yet to compare if it was, like, the same wording or something. It's just translated differently in English and so far apart. But Tohru was basically like, oh, the way that we met was all wrong. Let's start over, and, like, I want to be friends. So it's kind of interesting how there's a parallel there. It's not something I was expecting.
I think Tohru and Akito's like first meeting and last meetings are very interesting.
Yeah, they're a great foil. That hasn't really been set up yet, but it's going to be.
Yeah, it becomes another one of my favorite relationships in the series.
That's why I suggested the name of this podcast, because they have that in common. That's what makes them a great foil. Like, Tohru wants to stay together with the rest of the Junichi, and Akito wants everything to stay together and stay the same.
Yeah. That was another thing I did. Yeah. Stay together. Anyway, that's another. It's not copyright infringement if I sing it badly, right?
Yeah. It's less than 30 seconds or whatever. It's also not like Disney or someone who's going to come after you.
That's something else I noticed just on that kind of like that, like, wanting to keep people together kind of phrasing that comes up a lot in the series is when Yuki's talking about the thing he wanted when he was thinking in that room. He says, like, a happy home with everyone smiling at me, a home that no one would ever want to leave. Just kind of another one of those versions of the, like, we'll stay together forever and no one will ever leave kind of thing that a lot of people have versions of that in the series.
Yeah, and that's Yuki's. It's true, of wanting things to be the same. I guess, like, accepting that things change is definitely a big part of the series.
It's just kind of like how that it's like a lighthearted, happy kind of desire here, but it shows it, it shows it in darker forms in the series.
Yeah, you're right. I think
it's kind of how a benign or even like loving desire can be twisted depending on where it's coming from.
It's true, and that's like that's basically like the curse. Like, you just summed it up in like a sentence. Something that was like a desire to be together becomes a shackle, right?
It's kind of interesting. I just noticed it. I was like, oh, that's those words again.
Yeah, here comes the theme again. If you change the words, that doesn't count as copyright infringement either, right? Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that way before. That's a good point. And he's not the only one that thinks about that kind of thing in like a positive way, or it's something that he desires in a positive way, or they desire in a positive way. Yeah. I'm really glad I didn't have to talk about people, like swinging the badminton bats and like whatever. Or whatever, not bats. What are they called? Rackets.
Such a random game for them to be playing. Is badminton big in Japan, or
I don't know.
The 90s?
Maybe. Also, it's cheap and portable. Like, I bet they play it at school or something. Like, I don't know. How do they even have all the equipment? Like, where do they get all that from? Anyway, these are the questions.
Or we used to, like, you could, like, rent out the balls for a free period or whatever. Maybe they have something like that.
Maybe. Perhaps they do that. I don't know. I guess the one other spoiler thing is that Tohru, again, addressed her mother in her inner monologue. Like, in particular, when she was kind of thinking about how, like, meeting with Akito was scary. Or she's like, Mom, I met the head of the family today, and like I can't remember exactly what she says, but she addresses her mother in her inner monologue a lot, and I think it's just also part of another little like peeking through of her that like kind of still unhealthy attachment and not yet processed major loss in her life. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't have any of their spoilers. Just those big, terrifying Akito spoilers.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so next episode, if you stuck around to listen to the rest of the spoilers, thank you, of course, and thanks for listening to this episode. We'll be talking about chapters 21 and 22 next time, and that's it, because I already said all the stuff before.
We're still in the same places.
Yeah, we're still, nothing has happened in the last 2 minutes. Or however long this has been. In between the time that I added the music and then we started recording this, which was literally 5 seconds. Nothing has happened. So, all right, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.